Before we begin, thank you very much to Just Right Convoy for pitching in over on Ko-fi. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that one person who's like, we've had so many small convoys, so many big convoys, like, there's got to be one that's just right. So Goldilocks can finally sleep on her nice, comfortable mammoth that is actually the right size for her. Thank you very much for pitching in. This is what keeps the daily grind grinding, the daily content posting, and keeps it free for everyone to view. So, we have a juicy rumor we have to discuss today. Fresh off the rumor mill this morning, we got notification that a G1 Megatron is coming to the LEGO line. Now, that's a pretty obvious thing, considering Optimus has got a couple years on him at this point. However, there's a couple things about this. Number one, the leaker admits that the batch of listings that you see here, this was part of a larger batch, and some of it turned out to be not true, but they've been sitting on it for months, and if they've put it out at this point, then they're confident enough to get people's hopes up, but it is still a take it with a grain of salt. But the other aspect of this is how LEGO leaks are done. If you are unfamiliar, LEGO is very, very strict when it comes to leaked stuff. They absolutely hate it when people show off stuff that has not been publicly revealed yet. So you absolutely do not leak this any more than just a name on a list like this. This is as much as you get. But all that said, this presents an issue. And now, when you imagine a G1 LEGO Megatron, I know immediately ideas spring to your head, but if you are a LEGO collector, if you know LEGO's policies, you know why this is a problem. So we're going to examine that, and we're going to figure out the way around it. But one argument I am going to cut off immediately. I'm just going to take this at the ankles right now. No, this is not an invitation for a gun Megatron, because I know someone out there is going to get super excited over this. Like, hey, they don't have to package him as a gun. They don't even have to show what he turns into on the box. They could just make him turn into a gun. No, they can't. This is not a workaround. Shut up. I would love to have a head your dense, because I could sell it as armor for the military. You will never see another gun Megatron released in America, period. Number one, because ultimately they would have to put it on the box what it turns into. But also, number two, do you have any idea how complicated it is to make a Megatron into a gun? Like, we're talking LEGO style construction and engineering. There's only so much you can do and still function as a transformer. So transformations have to be pretty simplistic, and rudimentary. Everything that we've gotten so far has been essentially G1 level transformations, nothing overtly complex. Even the original G1 Megatron is such a complicated toy for the rest of its line. Like, it's way beyond, the engineering on it is way beyond what anything else in year one in Transformers is all about. So it ain't happening. Even third party has not quite figured out how to get a simple Megatron that looks G1 in robot mode and can still turn into a gun. So literally, it's physically impossible. Completely. But at the same time, there's another big reason why that would never happen. And it's the same reason why Tank Megatron, his official replacement, is also problematic. See, if you go to Amazon, you will find LEGO-style toys that do have realistic tank modes. But the truth here is that all of them that you see are unofficial. They are other brick brands. They are knockoff. They are not LEGO. LEGO themselves has an incredibly strict stance on any kind of military vehicle in their toy line, and that is none of it. They don't want any military vehicle because they don't want to glorify or promote war in any way, shape, or form, and I respect that stance. That's perfectly fine. Would I like a LEGO tank to satisfy my own personal needs? Yes. But are my own personal needs and wants more important than, like, LEGO's stance? No, not really. So, I respect it. Okay, so anytime you see any kind of like vehicle, it has to be very exaggerated, very futuristic, very fantasy based. Um, even like military jets, jeeps, etc. They always have some kind of exaggeration. They always have some alien design to them, like stuff in like the Avengers line, for instance. So you're not going to see Megatron as a tank, most likely. But that said, we need to figure out something for him to turn into. I mean, all the other Lego Transformers transforms. Like, obviously, Megatron's got to as well. Now, I did a whole video once upon a time showing everything Megatron has ever transformed into. Because his original alt mode is so problematic today, he has become a litany of things over the years. And now we can open up the floor to debate literally every single one of them if we wanted to. Now, I don't have that kind of time today. You don't have that kind of time today. So we're just going to keep it simple to like just a couple of examples, and not only why those will not work for this particular project, but also why similar vehicles and ideas are also not going to work. First off, let's take a lot of his aerial modes. So he's turned into a lot of things that fly. A couple of different VTOLs, both in Earthspark as well as in animated. He's been a jet on rare occasion. He's been like alien futuristic ones. But the truth is, it ain't going to be any of those because once again, we're talking a more complicated transformation. I feel like one of the reasons why Lego Starscream is probably very far off and or possibly not happening at all is because the arm transformation has to be complicated in order to work. It's very hard to get a simplistic design that Lego would require to actually accomplish that. Meaning, most of the aerial stuff is probably out. Even though I would accept a VTOL style Megatron for this, and granted, animated Megatron is a pretty simple design, I don't think it would hit the right notes. Especially for this marketing itself as a nostalgia piece for, adult collectors as well. I think you would avoid something like this. Okay, so what about the ground vehicles? I mean, we've done Bumblebee, so we know ground vehicles are an option. But really, again, you're dealing... this is going to be, like, physically possible, but the overall shape you're going to end up with is nothing like G1 Megatron. With an aerial vehicle, you could probably fake it. With, like, most ground vehicles, probably not. There's probably going to have to be some give in there. That is not going to be acceptable for most of the audience that this is going to be aimed at. So, if I look at precedent, if I look at things that I know Megatron already existed as, the one that comes to mind the most, the one that I spot the most, is this semi-truck. Now, he has been the semi-truck in Dark of the Moon. So we know that this is a vehicle he is capable of being. And technically in Age of Extinction as well, if you want to count Galvatron as just, a misnamed Megatron. You could also count that as well. But I think you would make it the long nose. I think you would make it the long nose closer to Dark of the Moon, just to separate him from Optimus Prime. But this accomplishes one of the biggest problems you have, which is it has to look like G1 Megatron once it gets to robot mode. Which means you need something boxy. You need a vehicle that is just a bunch of boxes that can rearrange into G1 Megatron's shape. Something like this would absolutely work for that. You could imagine just like where parts are going to go in order to actually make the traditional Megatron look here. And we know it can be kept fairly simple. So that is actually an option. I actually weigh that as option. And here's the crazy thing. There's more than one precedent for it. Besides the movie, well, at least these movie toys, the Creo line did it. Granted, this Megatron had to be broken down and then rebuilt into robot mode. I mean, that's how he worked in Age of Extinction, technically. But again, I think it's ironic that even in the Lego-alike Creo line from Hasbro, there is still actual precedent for turning him into a long-nosed semi-truck. it would be really ironic. And like, I almost like it when Megatron is the long-nosed truck as opposed to Optimus Prime's flat nose. It makes some very weird parallels, you know? Like, it almost like frames their rivalry correctly. You know, it's actually a really, really cool thing. So I like this idea. I'm not totally married to it, but I like the idea well enough, and I feel like it is a possibility. But that said, I know what someone out there said. Well, we can't make him a realistic tank, but Lego's done alien and futuristic tanks, and Megatron's been a few of those. And yes, you are correct. So we do also have to examine the possibility that it's going to be something more akin to a futuristic or Cybertronian tank, of which Megatron has had plenty of examples, with the Gamer Edition being the most recent of those. Now, this is possible. I will fully admit, this is possible. But that said, it seems like to me, from the research I have done, I did some searching both on Amazon and on Lego Wiki, just to see what kind of tanks they have made in the past, because I do know that they have made some tanks. But the truth is, like, even when they give in and actually do a tank of some kind, it really does not look like a real-world tank. I mean, frankly, almost the vast majority of them are Star Wars vehicles described as tanks. You know, like the turbo tank, I would not call a tank Megatron would turn into. Too many wheels. Too many wheels. But it's true. Like, this is the kind of thing you get when you look up Lego tanks, you know? You get Star Wars stuff, you know, and all the tanks that show up there. But there's a big hover tank that looks nothing like anything in the real world. And that's acceptable for Lego. So, what else do I have? What else do we have? So, what I found is they have to either be extremely alien in design, and while granted, this is a really neat idea for a laser tank. I kind of like this look a lot. This ain't going to be Megatron, though. Certainly not. But you either get things like this that are super futuristic and stylized, or the ridiculous. Sometimes you just get flat out ridiculous when it comes to any of these things. So there's no real middle ground, unfortunately. I looked. I mean, you keep looking deeper and deeper, you start getting into even weirder stuff. So the idea of him turning into a tank, even a futuristic or Cybertronian one, even that seems really weird and lofty. Like, it was a struggle for me to find anything that looked even remotely close to something Megatron would actually turn into. And the thing is, I did find it. There is one that I saw that I thought, this actually could be Megatron. And ironically enough, weirdly enough, came from Batman. It's Batman's tank. This is as close as it gets to a real-world tank in any Lego line. I mean, it just is, and which is crazy to me. It is very Transformers 1 vibe, isn't it? With those really long front treads and like that front section of the cab of the tank that's all the way to the back, kind of that vibe. Weirdly enough, but something more akin to this might work. Now, I don't know if you looked at the tanks that I showed you all that carefully, but they all share one common problem that is going to make a Megatron a lot more difficult to do in Lego. Here's G1 Megatron's model. Can anyone tell me where the problem lies? Oh, give up? Okay. It's that massive thing hanging off his arm. Megatron's fusion cannon is iconic. You wouldn't be able to do a G1 Megatron style Lego set without it. However, we know from Lego Optimus Prime that even though they came up with a brand new engineering system specifically for the heavy ratcheted shoulders and joints that these Transformer kits would require, both for holding poses and for transforming, they still do not have a whole lot of strength to them. A lot of people who kept their Optimus Prime with his gun pointed as a pose, ended up finding the gun pointed downward after time, and the shoulder no longer having the grip that it once had. So those joints do wear down. If you do have your Lego Transformers, my recommendation would just keep them in that static eye pose. Don't try to do anything extreme with them. Yeah, if you do it for a photo, that's fine. If you want it on display, just keep it standing up. Just straight standing up like it's the G1 toy. Nothing extreme, nothing weird. But that does present the problem of saying, okay, so the tank needs a gigantic fusion cannon because you need that fusion cannon on the robot mode. How do you get around that? So I did do some research. Lego does have some cylinder pieces that could lighten the load, but it would dictate the size that everything has to be. And I think now that there's a precedent for how big these toys are, now they have to keep it a certain size. You know, Megatron is always depicted, like, traditionally as just a little bit larger than Optimus Prime, so they could get away with a slightly larger look to him. But overall, I don't think you're going to get that much. I mean, it's still, like, enforcing how big this toy has to be, which is going to be problematic for any engineer who had to come up with it. So, that's going to be an issue as well. So, the kind of ends the breakdown, you know? Like there really is only a couple possibilities. You could give him some kind of big silver semi-truck look, which I think would be cool, but maybe not satisfy the original collectors and the G1 purists, even though, you know, this is, you know, even though, like, he's been a truck before. But the other option is to just make him a more futuristic tank that Lego would find acceptable. But then you have to figure out where that big barrel's going to go, and still not look like a real tank. So, problems on both ends. Oh, and there is one other possibility here that we do have to acknowledge because, frankly, you know, it is a very big possibility with a set. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If they can't turn him into any kind of tank that would be acceptable to fans, and they certainly can't turn him into a gun, so your only option is probably, you know, might actually be just no transformation whatsoever. Just build the robot mode and focus on making it look as good as possible, and just let it be a static figure rather than a transformer. The toy itself is exceptionally difficult, because I don't see any option where everyone is going to be happy. You know, if you're going to have that sect that thinks it has to be a gun no matter what toy laws say anymore. They're never going to be happy again. You're going to have the people who are upset no matter what direction they go with the tank mode, and just people who are outright refuse the tank in general. And of course, all the other kits in this set transform already, minus the brickheads, obviously. So if the Megatron doesn't transform, now you've created a weird figure in the lineup. There may be no winning here. There may be no winning. We're looking at compromises no matter what direction they go in. But my bets are either the truck or a very creative futuristic tank that still somehow has a simple transformation into G1 Megatron. I'm not entirely sure how they pull it off, but then again, Lego has some of the best engineers on the planet, so we'll have to see. So, those are the thoughts of the day. Let me know what you think in the comments below what Megatron could potentially transform into, because, yeah, there's obviously a lot of options, but very few that I think would be pleasing, and very few that Lego would be okay with. But let me know your ideas below, and as always, I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.